My sister tried to steal my baby during postpartum. She came to help but started acting like my daughter belonged to her, constantly pushing me aside and correcting everything I did. The breaking point came when I woke up to find her locked in another room with my newborn, rocking her like she was the mother. That moment revealed everything I needed to know about her twisted intentions. My name is Melissa, I'm 29 years old, and this story still haunts me every single day. For 26 years, I thought I knew my sister Brianna better than anyone else in this world. She was my best friend, my confidant, the person I trusted most. I never imagined that bringing my first child into this world would reveal a side of her so dark and possessive that it would destroy our relationship forever. Brianna is 2 years younger than me, and growing up in Portland, Oregon, we were practically joined at the hip. Our parents, David and Carol, always said we were like two peas in a pod. When I scraped my knee, Brianna cried. When she had nightmares, I was the one who crawled into her bed to chase them away. We shared secrets, dreams, and I genuinely believed we'd be each other's maid of honor, godmothers to each other's children, and best friends until we were old and gray. Throughout high school and college, nothing changed. Brianna was studying elementary education while I pursued nursing. We'd video call each other every night, sharing stories about our days, our crushes, our future plans. When I met my husband Jake during my final year of nursing school, Brianna was the first person I called to tell her about him. She was so excited, asking a million questions about what he looked like, what he studied, whether he made me laugh. When Jake proposed after we'd been dating for 3 years, Brianna cried harder than I did. She immediately started planning my bachelorette party and talking about how she couldn't wait to be an aunt someday. That's what makes this whole situation so devastating. Brianna had always talked about wanting to be an aunt. During family dinners, she'd bring up how she was going to spoil my future children rotten. She'd see babies at the mall and get this wistful look in her eyes, saying things like, "I can't wait until you have kids, Mel. I'm going to be the best aunt ever." At the time, I thought it was sweet. I thought it showed how much she loved me and how excited she was about our family growing. Jake and I got married when I was 26, and we decided to wait a couple years before having children. We wanted to get established in our careers, buy a house, and just enjoy being married for a while. During those 2 years, Brianna's comments about us having children became more frequent. At family gatherings, she'd joke about how she was ready to babysit whenever we were ready to give her a niece or nephew. She'd send me articles about pregnancy and baby care, saying she was preparing to be the world's greatest aunt. When Jake and I finally decided we were ready to start trying for a baby, I was so excited to tell Brianna. I called her immediately after we made the decision, and her reaction was over the top. She screamed so loudly that I had to pull the phone away from my ear. She started making plans immediately, talking about how she was going to take time off work when the baby was born to help me, how she was going to set up a nursery at her apartment for when she babysat, how she'd already been looking at cute outfits to buy. Getting pregnant took us about 8 months, and during that time, Brianna was incredibly supportive. She'd check in on me constantly, asking about ovulation tests and doctor appointments. When I finally got that positive pregnancy test, she was the second person I told, right after Jake. She cried happy tears over FaceTime and immediately started talking about everything she wanted to do to help prepare for the baby's arrival. Throughout my pregnancy, Brianna was wonderful. She threw me the most beautiful baby shower, came to every doctor's appointment I'd let her attend, and helped Jake and I set up the nursery. She bought more baby clothes than we could possibly use and read every parenting book she could get her hands on. She kept saying she wanted to be prepared to help me with everything once the baby arrived. I should have noticed the first warning sign during my 7th month of pregnancy. Jake and I were at a family barbecue, and I was sitting with my hand on my belly, feeling the baby kick. Brianna came over and put her hand on my stomach without asking, which wasn't unusual. Lots of people had been doing that throughout my pregnancy. But then she started talking to my belly in this voice I'd never heard her use before. "Hi there, little one," she cooed, rubbing circles on my stomach. "It's Mommy Brianna. I can't wait to meet you and take care of you." She looked up at me and laughed. "I'm just practicing for when I babysit all the time." Something about the way she said, "Mommy Brianna," made me uncomfortable, but I brushed it off. She was just excited to be an aunt, I told myself. She'd been waiting for this for years. The second warning sign came during my baby shower. Brianna had organized everything perfectly, beautiful decorations, delicious food, all our friends and family there. But during the gift opening, I noticed she kept referring to things as ours. When someone gave me a stroller, she said, "Oh, we're going to love taking walks in this." When I opened a baby monitor, she said, "This will be perfect for when we're watching her at night." At the time, everyone laughed it off as excited aunt behavior. My mom even said, "Brianna's going to be such a hands-on aunt. You're so lucky to have that kind of support, Melissa." But looking back now, I can see that these weren't innocent slips of the tongue. They were glimpses into what Brianna was really thinking about my pregnancy and my future daughter. My daughter, Sophia, was born on a rainy Tuesday morning in March after a long, difficult labor that ended in an emergency C-section. Jake was incredible throughout the whole experience, holding my hand and whispering encouragement. When Sophia finally arrived, screaming and perfect, I felt this overwhelming rush of love that I'd never experienced before. Jake was crying, I was crying, and for a moment, everything in the world felt right. Brianna arrived at the hospital about 2 hours after Sophia was born. I was exhausted and still pretty heavily medicated, but I was excited to introduce my sister to my daughter. When she walked into the room, her face lit up in a way I'd never seen before. She immediately asked if she could hold Sophia, and of course, I said yes. What happened next should have been my biggest warning sign, but I was too tired and emotional to really process it. Brianna took Sophia in her arms and immediately started crying. But it wasn't the happy, congratulatory crying you'd expect from a new aunt. It was something deeper, more intense. She held Sophia against her chest and closed her eyes, rocking back and forth slightly. "She's perfect," Brianna whispered. "Absolutely perfect. I love her so much already." She held Sophia for almost an hour, and during that entire time, she barely looked at me or Jake. All her attention was focused on the baby. When the nurse came in to check on me and asked if she could take Sophia for some routine tests, Brianna's grip tightened. "Can't they wait a little longer?" she asked. "I just got here." The nurse explained that they needed to do the tests on schedule, and Brianna reluctantly handed Sophia over. But I watched her face as the nurse left the room, and there was something almost panicked in her expression, like someone was taking something that belonged to her. Jake squeezed my hand and whispered, "She's really excited to be an aunt, isn't she?" I nodded and smiled, but something deep in my gut felt off. I couldn't put my finger on what it was, so I pushed the feeling aside. When we brought Sophia home 3 days later, Brianna was waiting at our house with groceries and a home-cooked meal. She'd cleaned the entire house from top to bottom and had fresh flowers in every room. I was so grateful for her thoughtfulness, especially since I was still in a lot of pain from the C-section and felt overwhelmed by the idea of taking care of a newborn. I took 2 weeks off work, Brianna announced as Jake carried Sophia's car seat into the living room. "I want to help you guys get settled and make sure you're both okay." At the time, I thought this was incredibly generous. I was terrified about being a new mom, and having my sister there to help seemed like a blessing. I had no idea that those 2 weeks would turn into the most disturbing period of my entire life. The problems started almost immediately, but they were subtle at first. When Sophia would cry, Brianna would rush to pick her up before I could even stand up. When I'd protest that I could handle it, she'd say things like, "You're still recovering from surgery, Mel. Let me help." It seemed caring and supportive, so I let it slide. But then the corrections started. When I'd hold Sophia, Brianna would hover nearby, making comments about my technique. "Make sure you support her head better," she'd say. "And you might want to hold her a little tighter, she seems fussy." When I'd feed Sophia, Brianna would time the feedings and suggest changes. "Maybe you should try feeding her every 2 hours instead of every 3. I read that some babies do better with more frequent, smaller feedings." When I'd change Sophia's diaper, Brianna would watch and offer helpful suggestions. "You might want to put a little more powder on her. And make sure you're wiping front to back. I know you know that, but it's important to be really careful." At first, I tried to be understanding. Brianna had read all those parenting books and was just trying to help. But after a few days, her constant corrections were making me feel like I didn't know how to take care of my own daughter. Every time I picked up Sophia, I felt self-conscious and anxious, wondering what Brianna would find wrong with what I was doing. The situation got worse when visitors started coming by to meet Sophia. When my mother-in-law came over, Brianna immediately took charge of the visit. "Would you like to hold her?" Brianna asked, scooping Sophia up before I could say anything. "She's such a good baby. We've been taking really good care of her." The way she said "we" made my stomach clench, but I didn't want to make a scene in front of Jake's mom. When our neighbor stopped by with a meal, the same thing happened. Brianna answered the door, showed off Sophia, and talked about how well we're all adjusting to having a baby in the house. But the comment that really disturbed me came when my friend from nursing school, Jennifer, came to visit. Jennifer brought a beautiful outfit for Sophia and asked how I was feeling about being a new mom. Before I could answer, Brianna jumped in. "Oh, it's been amazing. We're like a little family now. I mean, I'm practically her second mom already. I know exactly what she needs and when she needs it." Jennifer looked confused and glanced at me, clearly wondering why my sister was speaking for me about my own experience as a mother. I forced a smile and tried to steer the conversation in a different direction, but I could feel my face burning with embarrassment and anger. That night, after Jennifer left, I tried to talk to Jake about what was happening. "I feel like Brianna is taking over," I told him as we got ready for bed. "She's constantly correcting me and acting like she knows better than I do about taking care of Sophia." Jake looked tired. We'd only been getting a few hours of sleep each night, and he was trying to balance taking care of me and the baby while also handling all the household responsibilities. "I think she's just trying to help, honey," he said. "She's been looking forward to being an aunt for so long. Maybe she's just overeager." "But it doesn't feel like helping," I insisted. "It feels like she's trying to replace me." "Did you hear what she said to Jennifer about being Sophia's second mom?" Jake pulled me into his arms carefully, mindful of my still healing incision. "I know it's frustrating, but she'll probably calm down once the novelty wears off. And honestly, I'm grateful for the help. I don't know how we'd manage without her right now." I wanted to argue more, but I was exhausted, and Jake had a point. Brianna was doing a lot of the cooking and cleaning, which was helpful while I recovered. Maybe I was being oversensitive because of hormones and lack of sleep. But over the next few days, Brianna's behavior became even more concerning. She started referring to herself as Mommy when she talked to Sophia. "Come to Mommy Brianna," she'd coo when she picked up the baby. "Mommy Brianna is going to change your diaper and make you all clean and comfortable." When I heard her do this the first time, I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I walked over and gently took Sophia from her arms. "Brianna, could you not call yourself Mommy?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "It's confusing, and I'm her mother." Brianna laughed and waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, Mel, don't be so sensitive. She's just a baby, she doesn't understand words yet. I'm just playing around." But she didn't stop. Over the next several days, I heard her call herself Mommy Brianna multiple times. When I brought it up again, she got defensive. "You're being ridiculous," she said. "I'm not trying to replace you. I'm just bonding with my niece. Isn't that what you want?" The gaslighting was subtle but effective. She made me feel like I was being unreasonable and paranoid. Combined with the sleep deprivation and postpartum hormones, I started doubting my own perceptions of what was happening. Things came to a head during Sophia's second week at home. I had been struggling with what I now know was postpartum depression, though I didn't recognize it at the time. I felt overwhelmed, anxious, and like I wasn't bonding with my daughter the way I was supposed to. Every time Sophia cried, I felt like a failure. Every time she seemed to calm down more quickly for Brianna than for me, I felt like I wasn't cut out to be a mother. Brianna seemed to pick up on my vulnerability and used it to her advantage. She'd make comments like, "Don't worry, Mel. Not everyone is naturally maternal. Some people need more time to figure it out." Or, "It's okay that Sophia seems to prefer me right now. Babies can sense stress, so she probably just feels more relaxed with me." These comments were devastating to hear as a new mother who was already struggling with feelings of inadequacy. Instead of supporting me through a difficult time, Brianna was actively undermining my confidence and making me feel like I wasn't good enough to take care of my own child. The breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon. I had been up most of the night with Sophia, who had been particularly fussy. Jake was at work, and I was feeling completely drained. Brianna had been in the kitchen making lunch while I sat on the couch with Sophia, trying to get her to take a nap. After about an hour of rocking and singing, Sophia finally fell asleep in my arms. I was so exhausted that I decided to close my eyes for just a few minutes while she slept. The next thing I knew, I was jolted awake by the sound of the front door closing. I looked around frantically and realized that Sophia wasn't in my arms anymore. Panic immediately set in as I called out for Brianna, but there was no answer. I checked the kitchen, the nursery, and the downstairs bathroom, but they were nowhere to be found. That's when I heard it, the faint sound of Brianna's voice coming from upstairs. But we never used the upstairs rooms. They were mostly storage and a guest bedroom that we rarely touched. I climbed the stairs as quietly as I could, following the sound of her voice. When I reached the guest bedroom, I found the door closed. I pressed my ear against it and could hear Brianna talking in that same cooing voice she'd been using with Sophia. "That's right, my sweet girl," she was saying. "You don't need anyone else but Mommy Brianna. I'm the one who really understands you. I'm the one who loves you most." My heart was pounding as I tried to turn the doorknob, but it was locked. I knocked softly and called out Brianna's name. "Brianna? What are you doing in there? Why is the door locked?" There was a moment of silence before she responded. "Oh, Emil. You were sleeping so peacefully that I didn't want to wake you. Sophia was getting fussy, so I brought her up here so she wouldn't disturb you. Can you unlock the door, please?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just give me a second," she said. I could hear movement inside the room, and after about 30 seconds, she unlocked the door. When she opened it, she was holding Sophia against her chest, and the baby was fast asleep. "See?" Brianna said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She calmed right down once I brought her somewhere quiet. "You looked so exhausted that I thought you needed the rest." But something about the whole situation felt wrong. Why had she locked the door? Why had she taken Sophia upstairs to a room we never used instead of just moving to another room on the main floor? And why had she been calling herself Mommy Brianna when she thought no one could hear her? I held out my arms for Sophia, and Brianna hesitated for just a moment before handing her over. It was a small hesitation, maybe only a second or two, but it spoke volumes about what was really going through her mind. That night, after Jake came home from work, I told him what had happened. I tried to explain how disturbing it had been to find them locked in the upstairs room, how strange Brianna's explanations had sounded, and how uncomfortable the whole situation had made me feel. Jake listened patiently, but I could see the skepticism in his eyes. "Maybe she was just trying to give you a break," he suggested. "And maybe she locked the door because she didn't want anyone to accidentally wake the baby." "But Jake, you should have heard the way she was talking to Sophia," I insisted. "She was calling herself Mommy again, and she said things like, 'You don't need anyone else,' and 'I'm the one who loves you most.' That's not normal aunt behavior." Jake sighed and rubbed his temples. "Honey, I think you might be reading too much into this. I know Brianna can be a little intense, but she loves Sophia, and she loves you. I don't think she's trying to replace you or anything like that." The fact that Jake didn't believe me made everything worse. I felt completely alone and like I was going crazy. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe the postpartum hormones were making me see threats where there weren't any. Maybe Brianna really was just trying to help, and I was too insecure and exhausted to see it clearly. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. A mother's instinct is a powerful thing, and every fiber of my being was telling me that my sister had crossed a line and was continuing to cross it every day. Over the next few days, I started paying closer attention to Brianna's behavior. I noticed that she would find excuses to take Sophia away from me. If I was feeding her, Brianna would say she needed to be burped and take her away. If I was holding her, Brianna would say she looked uncomfortable and needed to be repositioned. If I was changing her diaper, Brianna would say I was doing it wrong and take over. I also noticed that Brianna had started making decisions about Sophia without consulting me. She changed the baby's outfit because she thought the one I had chosen was too warm for the weather. She moved Sophia's nap time because she thought the baby seemed tired earlier than usual. She even called the pediatrician's office to ask a question about Sophia's feeding schedule without telling me first. When I confronted her about calling the doctor, she brushed off my concerns. "I was just trying to help, Mel. You've been so overwhelmed lately that I thought I'd handle it." The nurse said everything sounds normal, by the way. The fact that she had called my daughter's doctor without my permission felt like a huge violation of boundaries, but when I tried to explain this to Jake, he said I was overreacting. "She was just trying to help," he repeated. And if she got helpful information from the nurse, isn't that a good thing? I started to feel like I was in some kind of alternate reality where everyone could see what was happening except me, or where I was the only one who thought it was wrong. The isolation was almost as disturbing as Brianna's behavior itself. On Sophia's 3-week birthday, my parents came to visit. I was hoping that having them there would either validate my concerns or provide some relief from the tension I was feeling with Brianna. Instead, it made everything worse. From the moment my parents walked in the door, Brianna took charge of the visit. She immediately scooped up Sophia and started showing her off to our mom and dad. "Look how much she's grown," Brianna said, holding Sophia up for our parents to see. "We've been taking such good care of her. She's already starting to recognize my voice and calm down when I hold her." Again, there was that word, we. But this time, she said it in front of our parents, who beamed with pride at how well their daughters were working together to take care of the new baby. "You two are such a great team," our mom said, giving both Brianna and me a hug. "Melissa, you're so lucky to have such a devoted sister helping you through this adjustment period." During lunch, Brianna regaled our parents with stories about taking care of Sophia, but she told them as if she was the primary caregiver and I was just helping out occasionally. "She's been sleeping through the night for almost a week now," Brianna said, bouncing Sophia gently in her arms. "I think it's because I've been really consistent with her bedtime routine. And she's eating so well, I've been tracking her feeding times to make sure she's getting enough nutrition." The way she talked made it sound like she was the one doing all the nighttime feedings and diaper changes, when in reality, I was still doing most of the work despite my exhaustion and ongoing recovery from the C-section. Our dad asked me how I was feeling about being a new mom, and before I could answer, Brianna jumped in again. "She's been a little overwhelmed," Brianna said, speaking for me. "I think the postpartum hormones are really hitting her hard. But that's why I'm here, to make sure both she and Sophia are taken care of." The fact that she was discussing my mental health with our parents without my permission was humiliating. And the way she positioned herself as my caretaker rather than my helper made me feel small and incapable. After our parents left, I finally reached my breaking point. I waited until Jake was putting Sophia down for the night, and then I confronted Brianna directly. "I need you to stop," I said, trying to keep my voice calm but firm. "Stop what?" she asked, looking genuinely confused. "Stop acting like Sophia is your baby. Stop calling yourself her mommy. Stop making decisions about her care without asking me first. Stop speaking for me when people ask how I'm doing. Just stop." Brianna's expression immediately changed from confusion to defensiveness. "Melissa, I don't know what you're talking about. I've been nothing but helpful since Sophia was born. I've cooked for you, cleaned for you, and taken care of the baby so you could rest. I don't understand why you're being so hostile toward me." "I'm not being hostile," I said. "I'm trying to set boundaries. Sophia is my daughter, not yours. I appreciate your help, but you're overstepping in ways that make me uncomfortable." Brianna's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I saw a flash of something cold and angry that I'd never seen in my sister before. "Maybe the problem is that you're not ready to be a mother," she said quietly. "Maybe you're feeling threatened because you can see that I'm better at this than you are." Her words hit me like a physical blow. "That's a horrible thing to say," I whispered. "Is it?" she continued. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're struggling with every aspect of taking care of Sophia. You can barely get her to stop crying, you second-guess every decision you make, and you're so anxious all the time that you're probably affecting her development." The cruelty in her voice was shocking. This wasn't the sister I'd grown up with, the one who had comforted me through heartbreaks and celebrated my successes. This was someone I didn't recognize at all. "Get out," I said, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. "What?" Brianna looked genuinely surprised. "Get out of my house. Pack your things and leave. I don't want you here anymore." "Melissa, you're being ridiculous. You need my help. You just said yourself that you're struggling." "I'd rather struggle on my own than have you here undermining me every single day," I said. "You've made me feel like a failure as a mother since the day we brought Sophia home. You've crossed boundaries, made decisions that weren't yours to make, and just now you've shown me exactly what you really think of me. So please, just go." Brianna stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating whether to continue arguing or to try a different approach. Finally, she softened her voice and tried to look contrite. "Mel, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. That wasn't my intention. I love you, and I love Sophia. I just want what's best for both of you." But it was too late. I had seen behind the mask, and I couldn't unsee it. "Please leave," I repeated. "I need space to figure out how to be Sophia's mother without someone constantly telling me I'm doing it wrong." Jake came downstairs just as Brianna was gathering her things. He tried to mediate the situation, asking what had happened and whether we could work things out. But I was done. I had finally found my voice and my strength, and I wasn't going to let anyone, not even my husband, convince me to back down. "This is between Brianna and me," I told Jake firmly. "And I've asked her to leave." Brianna left that night, but not before making one last comment that revealed everything I needed to know about her true feelings. "You're making a mistake, Melissa," she said as she stood in the doorway with her suitcase. "Sophia needs someone who really knows how to take care of her. And when you realize that you can't handle this on your own, don't expect me to come running back to clean up your mess." The next few days were difficult, but in a completely different way than the previous 3 weeks had been. I was exhausted and overwhelmed, but I wasn't constantly second-guessing myself or feeling like I was being judged. For the first time since Sophia was born, I felt like I could actually bond with my daughter without someone hovering over me and critiquing my every move. Jake was supportive but worried. "Are you sure you can handle everything without Brianna's help?" he asked. "Maybe you two just need some time to cool off, and then she can come back." "Jake, I need you to trust me on this," I said. What Brianna was doing wasn't helping. It was hurting. And I need to figure out how to be a mother without someone else trying to take over. Within a week of Brianna leaving, I started to feel more confident as a mother. Sophia seemed more relaxed too, though that might have been my imagination. Without someone constantly telling me I was doing things wrong, I was able to trust my instincts and develop my own relationship with my daughter. But Brianna wasn't done trying to insert herself into our lives. She started calling multiple times a day, ostensibly to check on Sophia's health and development. She'd ask detailed questions about feeding schedules, sleep patterns, and developmental milestones. When I tried to keep the conversations brief, she'd accuse me of keeping Sophia away from her family. She also started showing up uninvited. The first time, she came by with groceries and acted like nothing had happened between us. When I told her I wasn't ready to have her in the house yet, she broke down crying on my doorstep. "Please, Mel," she sobbed. "I miss Sophia so much. I just want to hold her for a few minutes. I promise I won't overstep. I've learned my lesson." Against my better judgment, I let her in. But within minutes, she was back to her old behavior. She immediately took Sophia from my arms and started walking around the house with her, talking to her in that possessive way that made my skin crawl. "Did you miss Aunt Brianna?" she cooed. "I missed you so much, sweet girl. I've been thinking about you every single day." When I asked for Sophia back after about 10 minutes, Brianna's grip tightened again, just like it had in the hospital. "Can't I hold her a little longer?" she asked. "I haven't seen her in a week." "Brianna, please give me my daughter back," I said firmly. The look that crossed her face in that moment was pure resentment. She handed Sophia over, but I could see in her eyes that she thought I was being unreasonable and cruel. After that incident, I made the difficult decision to go no contact with Brianna. I blocked her phone number, told Jake not to give her any information about Sophia's development or our daily lives, and made it clear to our parents that she was not welcome in our home. The reaction from my family was swift and harsh. My parents were horrified that I had turned against Brianna and couldn't understand why I was being so cruel to someone who had only tried to help me. "She loves you and Sophia so much," my mother said during a tense phone conversation. "I don't understand why you're punishing her for caring." When I tried to explain what had actually happened, the boundary violations, the possessive behavior, the undermining comments, my parents dismissed my concerns as postpartum hormones and sleep deprivation paranoia. "Brianna is hurt and confused," my father said. "She thought she was helping, and now you've cut her out of her niece's life completely. That seems extreme, Melissa." The lack of support from my parents was almost as painful as Brianna's behavior had been. I felt like I was being gaslit by my entire family, like my perceptions of what had happened weren't valid or important. But I stood my ground. I had seen what I had seen, and I had felt what I had felt. More importantly, I had seen the immediate improvement in my mental health and my relationship with Sophia once Brianna was no longer constantly undermining my confidence as a mother. As the weeks passed, my resolve only strengthened. Without Brianna's constant interference, I flourished as a mother. My postpartum depression began to lift, and I developed the kind of bond with Sophia that I had been hoping for since she was born. I realized that much of my anxiety and feelings of inadequacy had been directly related to being made to feel like I wasn't good enough by someone who was supposed to be supporting me. Jake eventually came to understand my decision, especially after I showed him some text messages that Brianna had sent me before I blocked her number. In them, she had written things like, "Sophia needs someone who actually knows how to take care of babies," and "You're being selfish by keeping her away from people who love her." "I had no idea she was saying things like this to you," Jake said after reading the messages. "This isn't normal behavior, Mel. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." 3 months after cutting contact with Brianna, I heard through my parents that she had started volunteering at a local daycare center. According to my mother, she was channeling her love for children into helping other families. But something about this information made me deeply uncomfortable. I couldn't shake the feeling that Brianna's obsession with babies and her belief that she knew better than actual mothers how to care for children could be problematic in a professional setting. I decided to do some research and discovered that the daycare center where Brianna was volunteering had a policy requiring background checks and references for all volunteers. On impulse, I called the director and asked if I could speak with her about my sister's application. During that conversation, I learned that Brianna had listed me as a reference and had told them that she had extensive experience caring for her niece. She had apparently presented herself as having been a primary caregiver for Sophia since birth. I felt obligated to tell the director the truth about what had actually happened and why I had had to ask Brianna to leave my home. The director was very understanding and thanked me for the information. 2 days later, my mother called me in a rage. "How could you sabotage your sister's volunteer work?" she demanded. She was so excited about working with children, and now they've told her they don't need her help anymore. I tried to explain that I had simply told the truth about our situation and that it was the daycare center's decision how to handle that information. But my mother accused me of being vindictive and trying to ruin Brianna's life. That phone call was the last time I spoke to either of my parents. The realization that they would rather support Brianna's inappropriate behavior than acknowledge that I had legitimate concerns about her treatment of me and my daughter was heartbreaking, but it also clarified something important for me. My job as Sophia's mother is to protect her, even if that means protecting her from family members who might not have her best interests at heart. Even if that means facing criticism and rejection from people I love. Even if that means my daughter grows up not knowing her aunt or her grandparents. It's been 8 months now since I cut contact with Brianna, and I haven't regretted the decision for a single day. Sophia is thriving, I'm thriving, and Jake and I have grown stronger as a family unit. We've learned to trust our own instincts and make decisions based on what we think is best for our daughter, not what other people expect us to do. Last month, I ran into a mutual friend at the grocery store who mentioned that she had seen Brianna recently. According to this friend, Brianna had been telling people that I was suffering from severe postpartum depression and that I had irrationally pushed away everyone who tried to help me. She was painting herself as the victim in our situation and me as an unstable new mother who couldn't handle the stress of having a baby. Hearing this made me angry at first, but then I realized something important. The fact that Brianna was still talking about our situation 8 months later, still trying to justify her behavior and villainize mine, proved that I had made the right decision. A person who truly cared about my well-being and respected my role as Sophia's mother would have accepted my boundaries and moved on. Instead, Brianna was still trying to control the narrative and position herself as the wronged party. I also learned from this friend that Brianna had been asking detailed questions about Sophia's development, when she started sitting up, whether she was crawling yet, if she had said her first words. The fact that she was still obsessing over my daughter's milestones confirmed that her feelings about Sophia had never been normal aunt-like affection. They were something much more possessive and concerning. The friend who told me this information seemed to expect me to feel guilty about the situation. She really misses Sophia, she said. Maybe you could arrange some kind of supervised visit? She's family, after all. But I've learned that being family doesn't give someone the right to disrespect your boundaries or undermine your confidence as a parent. Being family doesn't mean you have to tolerate behavior that makes you feel uncomfortable or threatened. And being family definitely doesn't mean someone gets automatic access to your child, regardless of how they've treated you. I smiled politely at this friend and changed the subject. I didn't owe her an explanation for my choices, and I certainly didn't owe Brianna a relationship with my daughter just because we share DNA. A few weeks after this encounter, something happened that validated my decision in a way that was both satisfying and heartbreaking. Jake's sister Emma, who lives across the country, came to visit us with her 6-month-old son. Emma is everything that Brianna wasn't during those first few weeks of Sophia's life. She was supportive without being overbearing, helpful without being controlling, and loving without being possessive. When Emma held Sophia, she didn't cling to her or refuse to give her back. When she offered advice, it was gentle and respectful, and she always prefaced it with phrases like, "If you want to try this," or "This worked for me, but every baby is different." When Sophia cried, Emma's first instinct was to hand her back to me, not to take over and try to soothe her herself. Watching Emma interact with Sophia showed me what normal, healthy aunt behavior looks like. It also made me realize how abnormal and unhealthy Brianna's behavior had been. The contrast was stark and undeniable. Jake noticed it too. "This is how it should have been with Brianna," he said one evening after Emma had gone to bed. "I'm sorry I didn't see how wrong her behavior was at the time. You were right to trust your instincts." Having my husband finally fully understand and validate my experience was incredibly healing. For months, I had carried the weight of that decision mostly alone, wondering sometimes if I had been too harsh or too sensitive. But seeing Emma's respectful, supportive behavior confirmed that I had been right to demand better treatment from my own family. On Sophia's first birthday, I felt a complex mix of emotions. I was incredibly proud of how far we had come as a family and how much I had grown as a mother. But I was also sad that my daughter was growing up without knowing her aunt or her grandparents. Not because I regretted my decision, but because I mourned the family relationships that could have been if people had been willing to respect my boundaries and acknowledge their mistakes. Jake asked me if I wanted to reach out to my parents for Sophia's birthday, maybe send them a photo or let them know how she was doing. For a moment, I considered it. They were her grandparents, after all, and they had missed so many milestones already. But then I remembered the phone call with my mother after the daycare incident. I remembered how quickly they had dismissed my concerns and sided with Brianna. I remembered how they had made me feel like I was being unreasonable for protecting my daughter and myself. "No," I told Jake. "If they want to be part of Sophia's life, they know how to reach me. But they would need to acknowledge what happened and show that they understand why I made the choices I made. And I don't think they're capable of that. As Sophia gets older and more aware of her surroundings, I know she'll eventually ask about my family. She'll wonder why she doesn't have an aunt or grandparents on my side. When that time comes, I'll tell her the truth in an age-appropriate way. I'll explain that sometimes people we love don't treat us with respect, and that it's okay to set boundaries to protect ourselves, even with family members. I want Sophia to grow up knowing that she never has to tolerate disrespectful or inappropriate behavior from anyone, regardless of their relationship to her. I want her to trust her instincts when something feels wrong, even if other people tell her she's being too sensitive or overreacting. Most importantly, I want her to know that I will always prioritize her safety and well-being, even when that means making difficult decisions that other people don't understand. Looking back on everything that happened, I feel grateful that I found my voice and my strength when I did. If I had continued to let Brianna undermine my confidence and cross my boundaries, I don't know what kind of mother I would have become. I might have spent years feeling inadequate and second-guessing every decision I made about my daughter's care. Instead, I learned to trust myself and to put my family's needs first. I discovered that being a good mother sometimes means being willing to be seen as the bad guy by people who don't understand your situation. I realized that the people who truly love and support you will respect your boundaries, not try to convince you that you don't have the right to set them. The most important lesson I learned from this experience is that motherhood gave me a strength I didn't know I possessed. Before Sophia was born, I was a people pleaser who avoided conflict and tried to make everyone happy, even at my own expense. But becoming a mother awakened something fierce and protective in me that wouldn't tolerate anyone threatening my family's well-being, no matter who they were. Sometimes people ask me if I miss Brianna or if I ever think about reconciling with my family. The honest answer is that I miss the sister I thought I had, but I don't miss the person she revealed herself to be. I miss the idea of having extended family support, but I don't miss the stress and anxiety that came with their actual presence in our lives. I've built a new kind of family now, one based on respect, support, and genuine love rather than obligation and shared DNA. Jake's family has embraced Sophia and me completely, and we've developed close friendships with other parents who share our values. Sophia is surrounded by people who love her and respect the boundaries we've set as her parents. Every night when I put Sophia to bed, I look at her peaceful sleeping face and feel completely confident that I made the right choice. She's happy, healthy, and secure. She's growing up in a home where she's protected and cherished, where her mother's authority is respected, and where unhealthy behavior isn't tolerated for the sake of keeping the peace. I know that my story might sound extreme to some people. I know that cutting off family members is a big decision that shouldn't be taken lightly. But I also know that sometimes it's necessary, and I want other parents to know that it's okay to prioritize their children's well-being over family expectations or social pressure. If you're reading this and you're dealing with family members who are overstepping boundaries with your children, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is wrong. Don't let anyone convince you that you're being too sensitive or that you should tolerate disrespectful behavior for the sake of family harmony. Your job as a parent is to protect your child, even if that means protecting them from people you love. Even if that means other people think you're being too harsh or unreasonable. Even if that means facing criticism and rejection from your extended family. Brianna may have tried to steal my baby in those early weeks, but what she actually did was help me discover my strength as a mother. She forced me to find my voice, set boundaries, and prioritize my family's well-being over everyone else's expectations. In a twisted way, I'm almost grateful for the experience, because it taught me lessons about motherhood and self-advocacy that I might not have learned otherwise. Today, Sophia is 15 months old, and she's the light of my life. She's curious, happy, and absolutely thriving. When she smiles at me or reaches out for me when she's scared or tired, I know with absolute certainty that I'm her safe person, her protector, her mother. No one can take that away from me, no matter how hard they might try. And that knowledge, that unshakable bond between my daughter and me, is worth every difficult conversation, every lost relationship, and every moment of doubt I experienced along the way. I would make the same choice 1,000 times over, because protecting Sophia isn't just my job as her mother, it's my privilege, my honor, and my greatest joy.